There are probably as many as 4 or 5 fellows on Earth that are almost my duplicate, for instance, physiologically. Now, one of these fellows used to get me in trouble all the time. I walked up the steps of the Cuban embassy one day in Washington, D.C., and there was a Spaniard coming down the steps, and he said, "Ay, Pedrito, ¿cómo está?" And I said, "I'm very sorry. I'm afraid I don't know you." And, "Oh, that's all right, Pedrito. I won't tell anybody you're here." And I said, "Well, that's fine." He said, "Well, you can even pretend you don't remember me. It's still all right, Pedrito. I'm your friend," and so forth. And I hope everything comes out all right. And I said, "Well, thank you." And went on into the embassy. I forgot about it until one time I was in Puerto Rico, and I was trotting down a trail, and 3 Brazilian engineers were coming up the trail on horses. They took one look at me, and they said, "Ay, Pedrito, ¿cómo está?" and threw their horses across my path. They wouldn't let me go any place. And then this stuff, you can tell us. We won't write anybody. We won't let anybody know we saw you. A big routine. And they finally had me cornered so tightly that nothing would do but what I went over and drank brandy with them and played chess, and they sure figured out I was putting on a good act. To this day, none of those fellows would do anything but claim that I was putting on a good act. Well, a little more time went by in another place down in Latin America, and a fellow walked up to me while I was sitting in a bar. He reached in his hip pocket, and if I hadn't kicked hard at his shins, I probably would have been a dead man. They threw him out promptly, and I scratched my head, and I said, "I'm not in trouble with anybody down here that I can think of." Till all of a sudden I remembered, by golly, I bet that fellow would have jumped if I had said I was Pedrito. Well, fine. Until one time in Panama, a girl took one look at me, the most scathing, scorching look you ever saw in the street, sniffed, put her nose very high in the air, and crossed the street diagonally. So I said, "Pedro's been here." I finally found out who Pedro was. He'd undoubtedly run into me, too. I finally found out who he was. He was the son of a rich Brazilian family, and he had the wrong political color, and he had gone bad in an awful hurry down in Brazil, and he was being looked for by the police of about 5 or 6 countries, as well as the parents of several girls. And during the war, I got a report that I had reported in at a place where I hadn't been. And my ears went up like a foxhound's, because Pedrito was a Nazi. And my picture was on file with the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale as an international pilot. And those were in France, and full records of me were captured when the Germans took Paris. And, of course, all they had done was backtrack me, look me up, take a hold of Pedrito, and cross orders. I don't know what happened to Pedrito. I often wondered what would have happened if I'd ever met Pedrito in the line of duty during the war. I am sure, though, to this day, that there is more there than just a physiological resemblance.